One, two, start.
Good afternoon and welcome to our distinguished guest. On behalf of Population First and UNFPA, I am Malti Kembavi, your host for this afternoon. We extend our sincere thanks for having committed your time for today's session. Leadership mantras to achieve an equal world post-COVID-19. Today's session is of 20 minutes each. We have 3 women speakers who will engage in a conversation between leaders and leaders in the making. At the end of the session, we will have 10 to 15 minutes question and answers which the panel will address. We request you to type in your message in the chat box. The entire session will be live streamed on YouTube. To begin our event, let me invite Dr. A.L. Sharda, our Director for Population First, to welcome the distinguished guests and audience. Over to you, Dr. Sharda. Welcome. Over to you, Dr. Sharda.
Oh, yeah. Good afternoon and a very, very warm welcome to our special guests and our young leaders, Miss Argentina Matavel-Pekin, and our audiences today. We are here to celebrate the International Women's Day today. I know we have come a long way from in the last 100 years, and achieved many things, and the world is transformed, and women are there in the forefront of many fields. Today we have with us 3 women who have achieved and who have broken many glass ceiling and challenged many stereotype in their lives, and have reached very high positions and are thought leaders and have led big institutions and organizations. And I'm very happy to welcome Mrs. Thorat, ex-Deputy Governor of Reserve Bank of India, Miss Faye D'Souza, one of the most popular media personalities in the country, and Dr. Anuradha TK, a space scientist. And, it is so wonderful to have you all with us. And and we have with us some leaders who are in the making, Purvi, Adoorya, and Kuljan, who are here to engage our guests in a conversation to understand how we have come this far, what needs to be done, and what does the future hold for women and girls. And my question is why there are not a lot more Faye D'Souza's, Mrs. Thorats, and Anuradhas in our country. Why still a large portion of our population, particularly, our women are, facing so much of discrimination, violence, injustice, and many of them are not even able to have a dream, let alone achieve the dream. So dreams are something which is very alien to some of those women. And on this day of International Women's Day, it is important that we entitled women come forward and look at what is it that we have done well, what is it that we have not done well, and what is it that we could do better, and give our bit to make a positive difference to the society. I always remember this particular woman from our village. And she was a petite old woman wearing a Nawari sari, and she was on the top of her hut, repairing the thatched roof. And then she looked at me, smiled, and said, "Madam, for the first time, I'm having 300 rupees in my hand, and then I can do whatever I want with that money." And I suddenly said, how come that she's been working, she's been an equal partner in the farming activity of the village. How come she never had 300 rupees? And I suddenly realized the value of 300 rupees for her and for her independence, for her confidence, for her self-esteem. Similarly, when my vermicompost women come and tell me, ma'am, we have to sell the compost on Amazon, and then we have to be business women and not just, selling small quantities of vermicompost in the nearby villages. I see the dream in their eyes. I see that aspiration. I see that desire to do something better. And that motivates us, all of us in Population First, to keep working, and both at the field level and at the idea level through the Ladli Media campaign. So on this day, I really feel that we need to understand, how our three guests have reached the positions that they have reached, and what is it that stops the others from reaching those positions. And I'm really eagerly looking forward to listening to the conversations between our young leaders in the making and our established and much felicitated leaders that we have with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sharda. Let me welcome our keynote speaker for the session, Miss. Thank you, Dr. Sharda. Let me welcome our keynote speaker for the session, Ms. Argentina Matavel, Pekin, Country Representative, UNFPA, India. Ma'am, we welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be here. All our distinguished members of the panel, especially women fellow lead and girl leaders, all men champions for generation equality, my dear partner and friend, Sharatji, director of Pop First. I mean, all over the world, women lead. It's not something that is new. But why now? Why are we speaking about women leadership now? Women lead either in peace processes, peacekeeping missions in the UN, managing businesses. They establish hospitals, schools. They lead their families every day. Women are judges, are governors. We have our dear Madam Thorat with us today. And scientists, we have one today with us in the panel. We have prime ministers around the world, presidents, chairs of corporate boards, you name it. Wherever you look, I mean, women had international and grassroots organizations. They had faith-based organizations, sports teams, labor, environmental movements. They are in the military, not just in the lower ranking military. They are at the highest ranking levels of military. They are pilots, they are captains. Whichever field we look at, women are there. True, we still do not have the numbers that we would have liked to have, as Sharadaji was reminding us today, but they are there. But they do all of this, all these professional, highly scientific positions while shouldering responsibilities at the homes, caring for their communities, for their families. And that is why this year, the theme for the International Women's Day really looked at women in leadership, achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world. Because more than ever before, this past year of COVID showed how much women are taking on their shoulders in, either in the home, but especially on the health front. This helps us, this theme for this year helps us put the spotlight on the powerful and exemplary contributions made by women across the world in responding to COVID pandemic. So the title is very befitting, and this is very timely, that in New York, in the Commission for the Status of Women, which is, it's a meeting that happens every year where ministers of different countries go and report on the status of the development of their women based on their promises in the CEDAW, in Cairo, but also in Beijing. So each year picks up a theme and the ministers go and report on it. Now, whether the women were in leadership positions or not, their strength and resilience really showed in a remarkable way, especially this past year in the field of health, as health professionals, frontline workers, caregivers in the homes. They were risking their own lives to make sure that other people got their lives. And as we celebrate women's leaders here in India and across the world, we do not forget the power of the female collectives. In India, for example, we have many women collectives. Kudum Bashri in Kerala, Mission Shakti in Odisha, Mavim in Maharashtra, just to name a few, who displayed and continue to display an enormous drive and that have rose to the challenge on many fronts. Women create awareness on COVID, appropriate behaviors. They were there making masks immediately, producing sanitizers, running community kitchens, supplying midday meals to young children at home and to homeless people and to those who were displaced. We saw the marches of migrants going back home. It is those kitchens, community kitchens that women put together that saved many lives. By building a truly gender sensitive and socially inclusive response, Indian women collectives have had a significant impact. Now, we must, even if we talk of the women leadership, and as Rajit said again, that we don't see enough women in enough leadership positions, especially those that are very much there at the top and field of finance, of science, of governing banks and other. That's because we need much more investment. We need to invest resources in the issues that bring women up, in starting even from investing in education, in women's health, that often is on the way, having a second child or a third child when she was due for a promotion, could be between her and that leadership position. How can that be done? How can we help build or invest those resources? There are many ways that have been advanced, even in the UN Secretary General's compact that he came out with a compact and suggestions for women, for government leaders, member states. One of them is invest and encourage girls to study subjects not traditionally seen as women's. For example, manning a spacecraft. Usually we think immediately of the boy. What do you want to be? Oh, I want to be an astronaut. Oh, everything claps. When the girl says that, everyone frowns. You want to be we have to encourage our girls to do that at the home, in schools. We need to mentor young women to take on leadership positions. Oftentimes women, because of the social biases and stereotypes, girls and women are shy. I see in my own office, the girls are not as forthcoming. Women are not as forthcoming when it comes to proposing themselves, for example, for higher positions. They're shy. So other leaders, we who are in leadership positions, need to be encouraging them and showing them that they actually know less than their male colleagues. We need to break those stereotypes. We need to create transparent, respectful, and positive workplaces. We need to break stereotypes starting in the homes. And I'm speaking now to fellow women, mothers. Sometimes we are the first ones to discourage our girls to do certain things. We need to do that. We need to engage our husbands, our brothers, to encourage the girls. And when we hear certain discourses that disencourage girls, we need to step in and say something. We need to do that at the school level. It's true that our teachers, and the majority of the teachers, especially in the primary school and secondary, are women. So why is it that we're not encouraging the girls to study science and subjects that would bring them and to dream far and high? Because even teachers are a product of society. So we need to start discussing more, speak openly about these things. It's only by acting in a deliberate, conscious, and persistent manner can we make inroads onto a gender equality societies. Engaging in vibrant intergenerational conversations, it's a great way to build such leadership. I am so delighted that Pop First, and usually Sharadji, you have the best ideas. I'm really delighted that today Pop First has put together this event to do just that, offering an opportunity for a conversation between younger people, aspiring leaders of today and of tomorrow, and with those who are already in leadership positions. And I'm thankful for the three women leaders who have kindly accepted to be there and be open to that discussion. Because oftentimes society does not encourage this conversation. Then to our young participants, I will say, listen to the leaders who are here today, to all leaders, in fact, read a lot. The culture of reading has died. How will you know about the world, about the sphere of the world beyond where you are? Absorb and learn every day, but carve your own journey. You need to ask a lot of questions, challenge existing societal norms and stereotypes. Be bold to voice your opinion and believe in yourselves. And I look forward today to listening to the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Argentina ma'am, for your inspiring words. Thank you so much. Now, to begin our first session, let me call upon Mrs. Usha Thorat and student Adoorya Harish. You may begin your session now. Please switch on your video and audio, please.
Okay, am I audible?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm beyond delighted to be a part of this event today. I'm Adoorya Harish, a final year law student at National Law School of India, University, Bangalore. I'd like to tell you all a little about myself and why I'm here today before I go on to introduce one of our main speakers for the event. Leadership has been a very integral part of my life, and I've taken on many leadership responsibilities since I was in school. NLS, National Law School, nurtured my leadership skills and gave me many opportunities to explore it. I'm currently serving as the president of the Student Bar Association of NLS. I have been elected as the batch representative for 5 consecutive years now. I've been a member of the Legal Services Clinic for 5 years and elected as its convener in 2020. I've also been a part of the Student Academic Council for 5 years and have been heading it since June 2020. Apart from the academic and administrative side of it, I've also served as the captain of my university throwball team and play snooker and golf as a hobby. I'm here today because I want to be the change that I want to see, and I'm an aspiring leader. It's truly an honor to be interacting with someone who's always been an inspiration to all of us, Mrs. Thorat. I'm pleased to introduce you all to Mrs. Usha Tohran. She has had a long, distinguished career at the RBI, and I can say with certainty that she has been a source of inspiration to many young girls. She joined the RBI in 1972 and has had a very successful career. Her career at the RBI covered all areas of central banking. She was in charge of key departments in the RBI in the period of liberalization of the financial sector in India after 1992. In 2005, Mrs. Thorat was appointed as the Deputy Governor, a post that she held for 5 years till November 2010. You must note that this is the highest position that any woman has ever reached in the RBI. As the Deputy Governor, Mrs. Thorat led, amongst other things, the RBI's initiative for financial inclusion. She was also the Reserve Bank's representative nominated by the Government of India on the board of SEBI. At the time of the global financial crisis, she was in charge of the banking regulation and supervision. But after stepping down from RBI, she became the first director of the Center for Advanced Financial Research, an organization set up by the RBI for the Center of Excellence for Research and Learning. Post her retirement, Mrs. Thorat has served on several important RBI appointed committees and has been a chairperson of many of them. Recently, Ms. Thorat was appointed by SEBI as the chairperson of the Mutual Funds Advisory Committee. She is definitely one of the most important and prominent women leaders in India and is a role model for all upcoming leaders. We welcome you, and we're glad to be sharing a platform with you, Ms. Thorat.
Thank you. I don't know whether Adoorya, I was so impressed listening to your CV and its multifaceted aspects that I started finding myself too narrow in my specialization.
Following your footsteps, man. if we may move on to the discussion today. Ms. Thorat, despite all the changes in the system and the growing inclusivity in the financial sector, women still comprise a very small portion of its workforce, and even their participation is rather low. To some extent, doesn't this reinforce the traditional idea of the industry being male-dominated? Can I hear your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thanks for your question, and thanks to Ladli for inviting me for this panel, which I'm really looking forward to, especially Faye, who's my favorite, really. And of course, very impressive scientist from ISRO. So I think I'd, rather get on with my session and get on to the others. Any case, I think what you're saying is true. If you take the financial sector alone, I would say probably the numbers have increased. It isn't maybe what we want it to be, but certainly at the entry level and at the middle level, perhaps the numbers are really, much more than, say, they were some years ago. But when you look at the overall participation of women in the workforce, there's very disturbing trends that we are seeing. And when you really look at all this, and initially when I remember Madame Lagarde from IMF used to talk about it, and then there was Minochet from the London School of Economics. She also talked about it in a public speech. She had come to India and she spoke about it. I didn't take it very seriously because I couldn't relate what I saw around me with this data that was coming out. And the data that is coming out is showing that women's participation in the labor ratio is decreasing dramatically in India. So the big puzzle, and every data, I was just taking out some data. The World Economic Forum report has ranked India at 149 out of 153 countries in economic participation, below Saudi Arabia. According to the data by the World Bank in June 2020, India's female labor force participation is the lowest in South Asia. The only countries which have performed worse are Yemen, Iraq, Jordan, Syria, Algeria, Iran, West Bank, and Gaza. We are from a ratio of 30.3 in 1990. India's participation ratio has dropped to 20%, far behind Pakistan and Afghanistan. And it's amazing. Amongst our South Asian neighbors, we have the lowest participation ratio. And this is incredible. The men's labor participation rate is about 76.08. And only 1 out of 5 women are actually in the labor force. Either there's something dramatically wrong with all the statistics that I have quoted, or this is just not tallying with our understanding and knowledge about, when you see more women's ladies compartments in the, suburban trains in Bombay, or you see more women going out and working in banks, you see so many of them in call centers, you see so many of them. So what is it we are missing? Definitely their participation in education has increased. And like I said, maybe even their participation in the financial sector has increased. I'm really puzzled by this. And I think that on Women's Day, by an organization like Ladli, I'm posing a big question in front of all of us. What is it that we're doing terribly wrong, that women's participation in the labor force has dramatically gone down in a period when we claim that India has really grown at such a much higher growth rate than we were doing earlier?
Ma'am, if I'm not wrong, had spearheaded the financial inclusivity program. So I just wanted to know whether the financial inclusivity program adequately accounts for this kind of problem of lack of participation of women.
Let us say that in India, the financial inclusion program, in a sense, got a real push by the self-help group movement. And the self-help group movement was all about women. These were all women who got together and they formed groups and linked themselves to a bank branch and put their savings there and mutually took out loans for some viable economic activity. We borrowed from the Grameen model, which was entirely based on the self-help group women with a lot of mutual rules. Also, we've had cases like Seva and women's cooperatives where you've seen the kind of growth in the women's empowerment which happens. And these self-help group movement, not only did they actually enable women to generate incomes for themselves, but they also empowered them in significant ways and got them also to participate much better in the political and social processes as well. I can give a number of examples where I have seen that happen. And wherever during the financial inclusion movement, we were going around the country and sort of talking to. And this was the fundamental base was the self-help group, participation of women, especially in rural areas. So, although it was nothing gender specific, the financial inclusion program did not actively target gender, gender as an issue. But certainly it was something that was, since it was so much based on the self-help group movement, one assumed that normally the women were getting also equally drawn into the labor force. So, my answer to your question is that despite all the inclusivity we are talking out, still there is so much exclusion. What I'm asking you the question as a student, and all the students who are listening, is please let me know where, in which sectors, and in which category of population is that participation rate going down. Right? This is all based on some primary data, the NSSO data, there is the ILO data. And so there is a need for us to understand this very clearly based on data and evidence and not based on some anecdotal evidence or our own impressions. And that is when I would like to start answering that question seriously.
Certainly, ma'am. I'm sure we all would like to cooperate and collaborate in pushing and expanding that effort further. On a similar line, we also see that a higher proportion of women are also in the lower positions compared to the top positions. So is there anything that we're doing? Are we doing enough to change this? For instance, even when we look at RBI, for instance, the highest a woman has gone, which is your position as well as the deputy governor. We haven't had a single governor of the RBI being a woman. And even our financial minister, for instance, the current financial minister is just the second women financial minister. So what do you have to say about this? Are we doing enough? Is there some effort being put in to looking at the incentives or the promotion schemes to help sustain women inside the financial industry?
Yeah, I think you're really basically talking about the glass ceiling and why is it that women don't go up. Now, if I look at my own experience with women around me who had entered the workforce into real professionals, maybe you take the defense forces or you take the central services like the IAS, the IFS, and so on and so forth, or say the banking services, whether it's State Bank of India, Reserve Bank of India, all the other public sector banks, which all had probationary officers. I think at a very critical stage in their lives, see, the transfers are inevitable part of these careers. So many of them, they are not able to handle the transfers. And the reason for that is it's an unequal position to start with, because the responsibility of making the home and making the homemaker is really that of the woman. And that has always, been the perception. Whether as women we nurture it in our children, whether as wives we also encourage it in our men, whatever way. And like Argentina rightly said, this is a stereotype that we all follow. And women perhaps are perpetrators of that, following that stereotype as well. But I think somewhere, so if I were to say what is it that prevents the women from going up, I would say it's the women themselves. It's the way I see myself and the way I see my role in society. My job is not be all and end all of my existence. I try to find balance in whatever I do, whether I'm trying to do the best for my children, for my husband, for my in-laws, for my parents, and, the whole family. So I think there is a little bit of that which, prevents you from really pushing it to the top. Certainly, I would say that did I consciously try to become governor or whatever it is, I would say certainly not. It was something, if it happened, it happened. As deputy governor, I enjoyed a lot of power and I thought I, did whatever contribution I could. So I would say the critical period, and I'll give you another instance. The ICICI Bank is one of the banks which has thrown out the maximum women leaders in the country. And I talked to the former chairman, Mr. Vagol and Mr. Kamath and these people. What was it they did which enabled their women to stay on in their jobs? And not only that, develop and get promoted and reach the highest positions. Same question as what you're asking. So he said, no, I gave them quite a lot of flexibility as long as they did their jobs. And when I asked the women concerned who were actually in those positions, they said that, see, the most critical time in our lives was when we were having kids. At that time, the organization gave us what we wanted. And they didn't hold that against us in our promotions and in our career later on. So we could get back and we could really go ahead. And not only that, it bought their loyalty forever, their commitment to the organization. So I think that is a great lesson for all of us. Society should, for the women, be very supportive during their critical periods of marriage and child rearing. I think that's absolutely, I would say, a policy that we need to recommend and propagate and advocate and the rest of it. That would be my answer for your question.
Certainly, ma'am. We only hope that many more organizations take up such an attitude and provide a conducive environment for women. Ma'am, on a similar line, when you began your career in the financial sector, things were very different. Can you tell us a little about how your journey has been and what were some of your biggest challenges, particularly being a woman?
In fact, I would say that being a woman, we didn't face any particular challenges in the Reserve Bank. Maybe the Reserve Bank was a very different kind of an employer. I don't know. I was talking to my former, very good friend and former colleague, Mrs. Gopinath, this morning. And I was saying, hey, can you think of any obstacles and hurdles? She said, no, really, Usha, I can't think of anything like that because it seems to have been very conducive. And that made me think, see, we came from a very small, elitist, privileged community of professional, probably our parents, both Shamla's father, my father, all very, middle class, not much money, but certainly educated, entered into the services. My father was a customs officer, her father was somebody else was maybe some other person in the government service. And we got the benefit of a very good education. Not we studied in fancy schools, no, all my school education was free. But we did have, we got a good education, got the marks to get into a good college. And that college education helped us to get to where we were. And the whole environment was one of supporting women like us. It was the most liberated period for an educated middle class girl. The society was open to her coming up and growing in that system, especially in public service. I'm not talking about the private sector because I don't have much knowledge of the private sector at that point of time. See, many of my friends and colleagues were in the public sector, right? They were in public sector banks, they were in public sector. And the public sector organizations had a very transparent policy on equal wages, the rules were transparent, promotion and transfers and everything was there was no discrimination in favor of women, neither was there any discrimination against women. So there was this whole environment which was very conducive. At least for I know in Reserve Bank, it was actually really good. And it wasn't as if there weren't earlier women in senior positions ahead of us. In the earlier batch, we had a lot of senior women. Mrs. Udeshi was the first deputy governor of the Reserve Bank of India. And before that, there were two ladies who became executive directors. They had all joined in the 50s and the 60s. So there was an entry of women at that position those days, and they did well. So I think we had a lot of inherent privileges and advantages which enabled us to, go ahead in the career. I tried very hard to understand what was the biggest challenges that we faced. The biggest challenges did come from the fact that we had to find a balance between our homes and our work. That is the biggest challenge. And those challenges, we surmount them by either getting help, getting parents. I was lucky to have had a transfer to Chennai at that point in time when my children had the benefit of my parents to come home to every day after school. Now, that age is a very important age for a child's life. I know that when I look at my daughter parenting her kids, my grandkids, and I know how 0 to 5 is such an important age. I would support women to be with their kids at that age. But that was not an option available to me. I had to go back after 3 months. I had 3 months of maternity leave and I had to go back to work.
Ma'am, I was just wondering, was there at any point in time, did you feel like at any position, there was a sense of reluctance to accept a woman as a colleague or as a senior at a workplace? Because I personally have experienced it not at a workplace, but in small internships or even in classroom settings. In particular instances, I have experienced this. So
That's why I'm little, when I hear about things like that, I'm surprised because I did not.
That's great, ma'am.
I can tell you, I was going through the biggest meeting. It was in 1970, 1978, 77, I think, 76 or whatever. I was pregnant, and it was my 8th month or something, and I was going for a big bankers meeting. Least bothered whether I was 8 months or 9 months gone. I was going to the hospital from the meeting room. I don't know, just didn't seem to make a difference.
That's great, ma'am. We hope that everyone's experiences in the future are similar to yours.
I'm not sure at all, because when I hear more people talk today, I find there's a much more gender consciousness today than there was, at least in the very limited stratosphere of environment that I was in, which was very limited.
Yes. Since we are running short of time, I'll save my question for the last, my remaining questions for the end. But as a short last question, I just wanted to know if there was one piece of advice that you would want to give the leaders in the making, if they want to spearhead change, what would it be?
I think you have to believe in yourself. You have to assert yourself. Don't let your gender stop you. Assert yourself. As a woman, you do tend to give quite a lot of importance to your family. True, but if you feel you've taken a fair decision by all, don't get emotionally blackmailed. Be yourself, be true to yourself, and I'm sure if you prioritize with all your priorities right, as a as the way you are, I'm sure you will get it right. I also want women to think of, that's what somebody said, what would have happened if women had been in charge during the global financial crisis? Would the world have been a better, would we not have the crisis at all? So I would say that let's think about that a little deeper. Right now, I'm more into environmental issues and health issues. As a woman leader, think more beyond your own limited profession, limited company, limited sphere. Think more of the society. Think of the impact. What are we doing unfair vis-a-vis the intergenerational equity? Think of nature. Think of Mother Nature. Think of somebody who's nourishing, nurturing, sustaining, restoring, rejuvenating. I would say let's take our lessons from that kind of philosophy. I would say that is what then would make you a wonderful leader.
Thank you so much for this insightful discussion, ma'am. I'm sure we all learned a lot from the knowledge and experiences you shared with us. It's truly motivated and it motivated me, and I'm sure I can speak for all the people, all the young leaders attending the session today. We hope to follow your footsteps and we will believe in ourselves.
Thank you.
Before
Thank
I end,
you.
I'd like to thank Dr. Sharda, Ms. Malti, Population First, UNFPA, and the entire team for giving us this platform, and more importantly, for organizing such a wonderful event.
Thank you too, to Ladli.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Srimati Usha ji and Adoorya. This is such an interesting insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to our second session, we have with us Ms. Faye D'Souza and Kuljan Singh. I request Faye D'Souza and Kuljan Singh to switch on your audio and video.
Yep. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Kuljan.
Hi. Thank you, Malti. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Kuljan, and I work with the Advocacy and Communications team at UNFPA India. I'm here today because, having worked under the leadership of 5 to 6 women, I think it has played a really influential role in where I am today, and in how I see things from a different perspective. So it is my pleasure to be interacting with one of the most renowned journalists in India. I'm sure I will learn a lot today regarding the field of media and in the communications industry. So she is the winner of Red Ink Award for Journalist of the Year and News Television Editor-in-Chief of the Year Award. She was the executive director of Mirror Now and anchor of the very popular primetime show Urban Debate. Now working as an independent journalist, she's managed to create her own space, in social media, which I believe is growing with each passing day, and where she brings her own style of journalism. So Faye, so glad to have you here with us today. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to Ladi and everyone putting this event together, for including me in this event. I have really enjoyed listening to the other speakers speak so far. So really happy to be here.
Great. So I'll start by asking, what inspired you to become a journalist, and what was the turning point in your journey in becoming one of the most successful one in the country? So if you could help us shed light on that.
So I don't know if I would categorize myself as a successful journalist or one of the most successful journalists in the country.
Well, people certainly do, but that's how you have it here. Yeah.
So I was in college studying commerce, accounts, mathematics. Because that was, if you were good at mathematics, in the late 90s, that's what you did. You either did a BCom or people did science. Nobody ever studied arts. Not if you wanted to get a job that paid any money at the end of it. So I was studying to effectively then do an MBA. But I had the good fortune in the college that I was in to have some great professors who were teaching English, they were teaching literature. It was also a college that sort of challenged every belief and every thought that you, or opinion that you thought you had, which is what I think college is supposed to be. It's a place where, everything you walk in with is challenged, and you ask yourself all these questions again. Do I really believe this? Do I, and to be in a space that is talking about what's going on in the world, talking about human rights, talking about all of these things, it sort of drew my attention to the option of journalism, which I hadn't considered up till then. And then I switched, majors to study journalism and English literature instead of commerce, much to the disappointment of my mother, who thought that I would never, I was only doing it because I wanted to spend all my time in extracurriculars, which is also true, because I did spend all my time in extracurriculars. But I was very fortunate to know when I was 18 what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a journalist. Radio was always my first love. I loved radio. Unfortunately, we didn't have too much news. We still don't have news on radio. I spent 2 years working with All India Radio in Bangalore part-time, reading the news. And I thought I would wind up in a newspaper or a magazine, but eventually wound up in television instead. And that's how I became a journalist. But it was the glory days of journalism in the 90s. Dr. Pranay Roy was on, was on TV reading the news every night to us. N. Ram was writing in the newspapers. Barkha Dutt was in Kargil. It was a great time to want to be a journalist. And that's how I decided that, okay, this is what I want to do. But I never imagined myself on television. It was not really the medium that I thought I would wind up in.
Yeah. What was the turning point, that sort of propelled you, to become a most successful one, in terms of television? So you started with radio, but it sort of kind of climb on from there. So what were...
So the first job that I got happened to be with CNBC TV 18, which is a business channel. And I spent 15 years working in business news. And I was covering consumer rights and investor rights and personal finance and crime and, different things. Over the course of 15 years, there were different beats that I covered. But when I was at the Times Group as a business journalist, they first wanted to launch a property-focused channel, which we then converted into a citizen-focused channel. And that's how Mirror Now happened. I was heading that channel at the time when we launched it. And it was a really an interesting place to be, because not only was I the youngest editor of a national channel, I was the youngest woman editor of a national channel. And I had never done political news before in my life. I had made a fully, sort of horizontal entry into that space. So I knew no politicians, and nobody knew me. And, and I live in Mumbai, so I'm not from Delhi. So for the longest time, everybody was like, who is this person? Where did she come from? But I think that was a good thing, because it meant that I had no friends in political circles at all. And so nobody had access to me. And so I actually reacted to every news story, I would like to think, like a citizen would have. you know, because a lot of the coverage of what happens in our country comes in from inside Delhi. And Delhi is so sort of drunk on its own power and its proximity to power that journalists are sitting in Delhi looking at the rest of the country from inside Delhi. It was interesting to get a perspective where you look at Delhi from the outside and cover what's coming out of the country from other parts. And it was a really refreshing change for me. And a lot of the what people called brave coverage was really, the folly of youth. Which when you start to do something first, you just you do whatever feels right, and you just keep running at it and keep doing whatever whatever your conscience says that you have to do. So it was supposed to be a channel that only focused on citizens' issues, because at that time, and there was really an opportunity for it, because at that time, I remember when we were trying to justify to the network why we needed another channel that was English in a crowded market. There was a study that was done that showed us that the most number of conversations on prime time in Indian television, and this was 2017, were about Pakistan. And nobody was actually talking about India. So nobody was talking about, the things that bother people in the country. And even if they talked about India, it was all politics. So nobody was focusing on the fact that even then fuel was expensive, although not as expensive as it is today. Safety for women was a massive issue. Schooling was a massive issue. I mean, I remember this one time when everybody was focused on a particular political story. I can't remember the story. And in Bangalore, there were a series of accidents over the course of 4 or 5 days where people on two-wheelers were falling into really large potholes and getting run over and dying. I mean, it was a ridiculous waste of life and a completely avoidable thing, but it just kept happening day after day after day. Someone would lose balance because of a pothole, fall over on the road and get run over. It was a daily thing. And I couldn't understand why anything that happens in Pakistan or anything that happens in a political party could be more important than that.
Right.
And with every passing day, there were more such examples of stories that were being ignored because they were just not powerful enough, or they weren't powerful people involved. I mean, at a time when, for example, there was this huge controversy that had taken place over the film Padmavat. At that point, it was called Padmavati, and everybody was talking about it. It was all everybody could talk about. That was the time that the farmers were marching in Maharashtra, and nobody cared. And in my opinion, the farmers were a bigger story than the other one. And so I think what we did right was pick the right story every day based on what we thought was important to our audience. And that struck a chord somewhere.
Right.
And that's where a channel with, I think we had 1/10 of the budget in terms of manpower, in terms of news gathering resources, in terms of marketing. We had 1/10 the budget of our older sibling, which was Times Now. We still managed to make space in people's minds because we were able to simply do what we felt was right.
Right. So when you were covering all the stories, trying to bring out, the facts and, the sort of attention that you want the issue to have, did being a woman pose a challenge, when, trying to cover these stories, or was there any sort of barriers that you faced when you're trying to, show the facts to the people?
Ah, okay.
Was there any challenge that when you were sort of, maybe you're on your journey to the top or something?
So see, actually, incidentally, India has a ton of women journalists on the field. Most reporters right now are young women. And so when I worked as a reporter on the field, and I worked in Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Delhi, there's actually not that much of a problem as far as sexism is concerned or discrimination is concerned on the field. I found it, interestingly, in boardrooms when I hit management and when I started running a channel and when I was sitting in the room with other business guys in suits. There's a lot more discrimination on that in that area than there is on the ground.
Right.
Also, it's a more delicate space to sort of navigate. I mean, I remember when I was told, and we were launching this channel, I was told very clearly that, listen, women don't watch news. Only men watch news, and men prefer to get their news from other men. So having a male anchor deliver the news lends credibility. So I was actually told that I should hire a man to sit next to me in order to make my work seem more credible. And it was a ridiculous prospect, but it was, I mean, there it was. I was told that men don't like the sound of women's voices. So when I'm anchoring, I have to make sure that my voice doesn't get too shrill because it will cause men to change the channel. Whereas if a man shouts through the top of his voice for some reason, that seems okay. So there was a lot of this sort of thing about tum ladki ho, tum pyar se apna kaam chalao, na? Why are you like, why are you getting like tough with the sales guys? Why are you getting, why are you pushing to, to do all of this? Why are you being so aggressive? These are the words that were used: aggressive, ambitious. Someone called me very ambitious and said that, she's getting too big for her boots. She's starting to sort of stretch past her brief. So there's a lot of this that happens in boardrooms that doesn't happen on the ground, which came to me, because the rest of my career, while it was physically strenuous and I worked very hard, I never faced anything of the sort. So I was, on some levels, I was spoiled because I was like, okay, I can handle it. But I walked into this room full of men and I was like, okay. And it's amazing how when there aren't enough women in the room, the first 5 minutes are spent on wife jokes, which is, it's this boys club thing. And the fact that I knew that management decisions would be made over drinks, over weekends at farmhouses where female members of the management committee were not invited because it would make them uncomfortable. Guys don't get to be themselves when there are women around. They can't swear and behave badly and stuff like that. But that's a disadvantage because you are making management decisions and you're not including me because I'm a woman. You haven't invited me because I'm a woman. And there's no need why this meeting has to happen at a farmhouse. There's no need for this meeting to happen over drinks, but it would. And that I see as a marked sort of, disadvantage for women. So there's a lot of this sort of mix between casual sexism to some level of discrimination, people calling you sweetie in a boardroom, like stuff like that. But yeah, I think that over a period of time, as we get more and more women into boardrooms, this will sort of fade as well because there'll be more people to call it out, which there aren't enough right now.
It's interesting you mentioned about being on the ground because in the recent years we have seen more and more women joining the media industry. But as you mentioned, if we take a closer look, it's most of them are at the lower or middle level. So you talked about being at the top level is sort of a challenge because of the challenges that you just mentioned. A report by UN Women basically outlines the data saying that women in top leadership positions in the media accounts for only 13.6% in magazines, 21% in TV channels, and 26.3% in digital portals. So the reason that you mentioned why this is that the same reason why there is a disproportionate representation of women at the top leadership positions in the media?
Just, sorry, 1 second.
Sure.
So there are several problems. The number of women joining the profession now has increased drastically to what it was, say, about 20 years ago or maybe 30 years ago. And even though a lot of women join the profession, remember, it's an extremely demanding profession. Yeah. Journalists, especially on television, work Sundays and Saturdays and public holidays and days and nights and weekends and everything. So when people get married, have babies, have in-laws who expect dinner on the table at a certain time, have spouses who expect the house to be run a certain way, it becomes difficult. I mean, I had young women in my team who had to quit because they recently got married and neither their husband nor their parents-in-law could understand the demands of the profession. It becomes really difficult. So you have a lot of women who drop out, And I've seen this firsthand. Women who take maternity leave and come back from maternity leave are then pushed into soft corners. So you write features, you write weekend columns, you write sort of softer pieces. You're not in the spine of the organization anymore, to rise straight to the top. So what happens is when you reach editor level, there aren't as many female options available. And I see that purely as a failure of the workspace. I do not see that, because these are amazing women who decide to become journalists and who last the first 5 excruciating years, demanding, stressful. These are amazing, amazing women. And we have amazing quality of journalists in India. But we have workspaces that are not supportive. They don't have creches. They don't have flexible work timings. And there's this whole idea of this, again, this casual sexism of, when a woman has a baby, that, oh, she's no longer focused. Oh, she's going to want to pick up her bag and leave at 6 o'clock every day. Or, she's sort of, her attention is always split and she's not as committed as, as she used to be. And that really works against women. And I just want to put it out there. And I've seen this happen to so many people. So you have men who come to office, who then spend a great deal of time chatting about politics, going for a cigarette break to the chai ka thela, coming back, taking a very long chai break, and then sort of rolling their sleeves up at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then they start working, and then they're there till 8, 9 o'clock, sort of looking really busy. They've whiled away 3 hours of that day. A woman, on the other hand, in the same job, will be banging on time. She will hammer out her work for the hours that she's there, whether that's 7 or 8 hours, and she'll pick up her bag and leave because she's got another full day waiting for her when she gets home. Right? She's got 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours of work at home when she gets there. Women are invariably working 2 full-time jobs, but it has not seemed to fully, sort of dawn to the understanding of many team leads who also happen to be men.
Right. Well, addressing the workspace challenges, you have sort of addressed the issue of not having women leadership at the top. So will that sort of solve a part of the problem, or be a sort of help address why women need
obviously having women in leadership is really important, because what happens then is that whenever there are policies designed for employees, you have a woman whose input gets taken. Obviously, when you have a woman let through the door, she holds the door open for other women. And you no longer, the ideal situation is when your boardrooms are no longer 99% men and 1 woman, or, but where there's a larger sort of representation, and that representation will then lead to more, lead to policies that make more sense for women, lead to policies that retain women through the course of their careers, which is really important. I remember when I started my career at CNBC, there were 12 of us in that batch who had joined from journalism college, 12 brilliant women. After about 7 years, there were 2 of us still in the profession.
Right.
And I think even now there are about 2 or 3 of us still in the profession. One is in print, and the other 2, me included, are on the internet. But most people just drop out because it's just too ridiculous. The assumptions are too ridiculous. So invariably, you will find, and there's data on this, that the editors of most newspapers, magazines, and television channels in India are not only almost all male, they are also almost all upper caste. Because you have to come from a certain privilege in order to be able to afford to survive in this profession. It doesn't pay a lot, which means you have to have support from somewhere else. You have to be able to do your job without worrying about your home, which disqualifies a lot of women. So the statistics actually are shocking. If you take a look at what the statistics are for people who lead newsrooms, and this is important because it then sets the tone of the coverage. Because here you have someone sitting in Delhi telling stories about people they don't understand.
Right. You mentioned about, women being given soft beats, as they climb up the ladder. And it's true, because we don't have like women leaders who are reporting on crimes as much as we would like to, or politics or business or things like that. So I think it also has to do with the sort of portrayal that we see on the media. Like most of them are seen during stereotypical roles. And, I think if we sort of, because media plays a very, very big role in sort of changing public opinions and all, how do you think we should kind of, address this sort of portrayal? And, how should we go about this? Does changing the portrayal or representation of women in the media will sort of help address some of the issues that we're facing? Or
see, we have right now a lot of women journalists who are functioning as independent journalists. I'll give you some examples. Madhu Trehan, for example, started News Laundry. She's got a couple of great women journalists working with her. Anubha Bhosle, Barkha Dutt, there are some great journalists who are now functioning. I think for audience members who care about how can we encourage more women journalists, find journalists you want to support. Support them financially by buying memberships to their work, by reading their work, by contributing, that sort of thing. Look for, and this is actually a reality of journalism in India. It shouldn't be an if, but if you are someone who supports Dalit rights, and we all should be supporting Dalit rights, look for Dalit journalists and, for magazines that are written by the community themselves, and support them financially so that they can encourage more and more people from inside the community to take up journalism. If you support LGBTQI rights, and everybody should, look for members inside the community who are doing the writing. There are journalists from tribal communities who are now covering the challenges of tribal communities. So we actually have, we have really focused journalism because of the wonders of the internet that's currently happening in India. And it's really important for us to be able to support all of these people. And I spend a lot of the little money that I make, I spend it buying memberships to everybody else's stuff, because I think that we all have to support each other. But at the end of the day, there are these big newspapers and big television channels where the money is coming in from advertisements, where the advertiser is not a bar of soap, but the government of Uttar Pradesh and the government of India and the government of Chhattisgarh. Now ask yourself, if the main revenue for this newspaper based on its front page and for this channel is going to be some government or the other, how honest are they going to be when it comes to questioning that very government? Not very. We know that that is why we are in this position today. Instead, if you look at independent journalists who don't have ad revenue, who instead are doing the work at great personal cost and great personal safety, find a way to support them so that you encourage more independent newsrooms.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I think I'll also try to wrap up the question because we're running out of time. But as a last question, I want to sort of ask, now you're working as an independent journalist and you have created a space in social media. And also most of the millennials or the young people nowadays consume news through social media. And what does it take, because it's a very demanding industry that you mentioned, what does it take for you to sort of to be on top of the news feed so that people consume your news to kind of opinions or news you're trying to put out? So what are the challenges to sort of people see you are so that you remain visible in terms of your journalism?
So actually, the interesting thing about being on social media is that because I made the switch to exit television, because I didn't want to be in the TRP race. I was sort of being boxed in further and further. My independence, my freedom to decide what I wanted to talk about and what I wanted to do was deteriorating on a daily basis. I was being told, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that. The flashpoint really for me was Kashmir. When the statehood decision was made about Kashmir, I was told not to talk about it. I was told not to ask questions about it, not to challenge it. And I didn't listen. And that's where the real rift that ended in my resignation started from. So which is why I made this shift to the internet. And when I entered the internet, I had promised myself that, hey, you know what? I'm not going to care about the numbers. I don't care if only 5 people view this video or only 6 people read this post on Instagram. I want to do it because I want to do good work. I want to do it because I want to create a space for myself where it's okay to do the work that I want to do as a service. So that's what I started doing. I started writing something on Instagram called News That Should Be the Headlines Today, which was just, it was actually 2 sentences per story, because I've realized very disappointingly that is the attention span of the average 20-year-old today. So I started putting out, my aim here was basically to be able to inform young people today, because I realized that far too many young people in our country are not reading the newspaper because it's inconvenient for them. And they were not watching television because they don't trust it anymore. And quite rightly, television news has squandered the trust of its audience. Shockingly, I met for the first time young people who didn't know what brand or what newspaper their parents were actually buying, or what newspaper was being delivered into their houses every day, because they never looked at it. I mean, 10 years ago, people would say, yes, we get the Hindustan Times, but I don't read it. Now people don't even know what paper is coming to their house. So here we had an entire generation of Indians, which is, by the way, our largest demographic, is the largest chunk of our population, who exist between what was TikTok, which is now gone, Instagram and Snapchat and all of these things. And they know more about European football leagues than they do about what's going on in their own country, because they're just living in a bubble of lunches and clothes and selfies, and they don't know what's really going on. So I said, okay, it is a moral obligation at this point to inform the young people of our country, because they are the largest voter base in this country. And if we're raising young people who don't know what's going on, we're doing a disservice to the democracy, because that's really going to put us at risk at some point, because these people are the ones who are going to go out and vote. And as all the journalists in the country would have failed if they don't know what's going on. So what I started doing is just simply writing the news, saying this happened today, this happened today, this happened today, this happened today, without any opinion, without any debate, no shouting, no aggression, because the other thing I realized that people are recoiling from is the aggression. The fact that all conversations about news are so adversarial right now. Something will happen immediately, people are yelling at each other, and nobody's explaining to you what happened. Yeah. So this whole, toolkit thing will come up, and suddenly the entire country is split down the middle, and everybody's screaming toolkit is bad, and there's other group singing toolkit is screaming no, it's not bad, but nobody told you what the hell a toolkit is. So it's to fill that gap, so that people can go out there and make up their minds about whatever it is they feel. You can decide to hate it, not care about it, do something about it, not do something about it. But first, let me tell you what it is, so that you can then make up your mind. So that was the focus with which I started working. And so I started with 35,000 followers on Instagram when I left television. We are now, as of today, at 906,000 followers. So we've gone from 35 to 9 lakh. From simply just writing the news on Instagram and doing absolutely nothing else. This is completely organic. I've done absolutely nothing else. And that's actually, it's really heartening for me, because we've now built a group of people, and I'm also able to then focus the news ever so slightly on things that I believe are important, right. Which is equal rights for women, equal rights for people of all castes, equal rights for the LGBTQI community, the environment, sustainability, science and technology. These are the things I believe young people in India want to talk about. We're ambitious for a country that's driven with science and logic, right? We're ambitious for a better tomorrow. I don't want to talk about Gomutra anymore. It doesn't help me in any way. Let's talk about jobs. Let's talk about how we're going to change the economy. Let's talk about how we're going to feed the largest population of hungry children we have in the world that live in India. Let's talk about how we're going to make sure that girls are not pulled out of school at 15 and married off because their parents can no longer afford to feed them. These are the challenges that we really need to fix in this country. And I want to be able to draw the attention of younger people to those challenges. So that's the aim.
And the fact that it has grown so much, like exponentially, it speaks to the fact that why that there are people who sort of looks for real good news. So with that, I would like to close our interaction. I had a really good time talking to you, and I hope everyone also did. And thanks for having us here today again. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to point out, so the latest experiment we tried on YouTube and on Instagram is to read the news for 10 minutes, Doordarshan style. When I say Doordarshan style, I'm saying it because I know Dolly Thakur is on this conversation. And, she's been an inspiration for an entire generation of journalists. And I said, let's do it the old school. And someone had sent me, I think it was my father-in-law who sent me this forward that's been doing the rounds, which has pictures of all the Doordarshan anchors saying, at a time when news was still graceful. Okay. And I was really offended. I was like, what do you mean? So I said, okay, you're right. When Dolly Thakur was on television, news was still graceful. So let's try and do that. And it's been doing really well. So we do 10 minutes we just call it Just the News, and upload it on YouTube and on Instagram every day. So you just have to listen to it for 10 minutes and then you're done. You know what's happened and, move on with your day. So for that, I thank Dolly Thakur.
Okay, great. Thanks for really great interaction and the great insights that you've given us. So thanks so much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Faye D'Souza and Kuljan, to a powerful insight of the media and the role that women can play. Thank you so much, Faye.
Thank you.
I am sure many of us are eager for the last session. We have with us Mrs. TK Anuradha and Purvi Todi from HR College. Over to you, Purvi. Please switch on your video and audio.
Anuradha ma'am, I would request you to switch on your audio and video as well. Hi everyone, I am Purvi Todi and I am currently studying in my 12th grade at HR College of Commerce and Economics. I hold the post of the Partners in Service Director at the Rotary Club of HR College, which comes under the wing of the Rotary Club of Bombay, through how I got this opportunity. I am here today as an aspiring leader to learn, grow and experience and enhance my leadership qualities.
Hi, Purvi.
Hi Anuradha ma'am, good afternoon.
Very good afternoon. And I have been listening to the wonderful keynote address and the previous speakers and the youngsters who are questioning. I'm really thrilled. It went on so beautifully, and I thank Ladli for this, and Sharda ji and Malti ji who made me part of this. Really thankful. So it's so nice meeting you, Purvi.
Same here, ma'am. I am really very honored to sit here in front of you taking your interview. It's a very big thing for me to interview such a distinguished female scientist like Anuradha ma'am, who has been working at ISRO since the past 35 to 40 years. Am I right?
38 years to be precise.
Yes, 38 years to be precise, as ma'am says. Her educational qualifications include a degree in BE Electronics from UVCE Bangalore. She has also held the post of a former director of the SATCOM program at ISRO. And she is the first woman project director from the ISRO Satellite Center, which is a commendable achievement from the side of the women. It's really an honor to sit in front of you, ma'am, and take your interview today. So do I start with the questions? Yeah. So moving on with starting with our first.
I hope you're not seeing any disruption, because I am getting a lot of disruption in the connectivity. Let's hope it becomes better.
Can you hear me now, ma'am? Am I audible?
Yeah. Yes,
okay.
You are.
So starting with our first question. So 35 to 40 years back, like the environment in India was so different with regards to the education of girls and women being leaders. So at that time, the society was mainly largely dominated by men, and you belong to a very unique field that not many women were a part of. So in the initial part of your career, what were the biases and the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Actually, if I look back, till PUC, we were 50% boys and girls were studying, even in those days, not such a dinosaur era, really. And a lot of girls were there till PUC, and later on, we had to make options for our further studies. At engineering, yes, the girls were very less when we joined in a class of around 50. We were 8 of us girls who were there. But, yeah, number was less, but it never struck anything, for us, because we had such lovely team, even at college, and boys and girls together. And even we made group studies, and engineering is something truly you cannot go by the syllabus itself. We had to do further studies. Whoever got additional information on our own, we used to make some kind of platform, etc. So we really didn't feel that I'm a girl and this my friend is a boy. In fact, we used to freely go to their houses. They used to come to our houses. Our parents were also accommodative, etc. And probably because I was in Bangalore, I'm not too sure. So being in a metro is much, much different, I suppose. And when I joined for ISRO, yes, there were very few women at that time. And luckily for me, I came to know much, much later that there were some functional groups who were not interested in taking girls at that point of time, because, the work always demanded 24/7. And we were always against deadlines and trying to do something new. And it needed much more investment of time from each and everybody. They had certain concerns. But I had such a boss, and for we didn't care it was a boy or a girl, and he would give a task and it had to be completed, and how you did it, whether you are staying beyond or you're trying to do within, was not the issue. And of course, and probably, it's always interactive. Probably he also tested the waters, like whether I'm ready to do it, and I was ready to do. And it is always a positive feedback, and it was a lot of passion, and there was a lot of respect for us. There was no bias that this person cannot do or I should not do it, etc. Again, as Usha ji was also telling, maybe because I also was part of the self-government establishment, where the systems are much more transparent and such biases are much less, really. And when she was talking, I was trying to recollect how it was for my younger sister, who did in her most of her career. She's also an engineer in a private firm. She would tell sometimes that, of course, everywhere merit is always appreciated and your hard work is appreciated. But for example, if you show a little bit of hesitancy, even the bosses may have a kind of hesitancy, to give some off-site job or something like that. How can I do? With all good intention, they may be having. That is the time when girls have to show that I can do, because it is your passion. You have started doing, and don't discuss your problems at home there. How can I do it? It's for you. You are a responsible adult, and you have to make arrangements back home and do that. And she was also a wonderful success in her own career in the private firm. Especially for me, I must tell you, I didn't see, probably because we were also brought up, we 4 girls at home, we were always brought up with a lot of trust by our parents, that we must have self-respect and respect others, should not be timid. At the same time, we have to be humble. These are some of the values imbibed in us, and that personal traits matter a lot. See, there might be an elephant in the room, and we were not afraid to enter the room because there's an elephant, and we knew how to tackle and make our things happen, and the constant learning should inspire you. What is going on in the job, that matters, so don't overthink about things. And if you have a dream, just chase it. Do not worry about others' biases. It is their baggage, not your baggage. You have to keep moving. And I don't think it came in my way anytime. Whatever I wanted to pursue, it never came in my way.
That's really great, ma'am, the way you handled everything and the way you didn't have to face those problems by not overthinking. That's so much great for us all to like learn from you. Did you face any challenges? Like you said, you had like 4 sisters. And so did you face any family challenges in your entire career or whatever? Like,
challenges, actually, most of them, I would say not, because I was a woman. The kind of job we were doing was highly technical in nature, and there were no precedences. Those were the days ISRO was establishing so many new things. And each day was so exciting to get up that there was a problem waiting and we had to solve it, and have to do it. And the access to information was also not as much as youngsters today they have it. We had to do a lot of reading of journals and trying to get information from various sources. It wasn't easy, and we had to really build things and see how things can fail, because it's very important how things fail to make sure that you succeed. Okay, so it was a lot of exciting journey, and those were the technical challenges. And in fact, they were motivators rather than hindrances to our career. So that is the way it is. And it was a great thing. And normally when some people, like Michael Jordan told, some people wish things happen, some people, they just think that it will happen and they want things to happen, but some people will make it happen. So you can't leave it in the middle. If you have the dream in you and the passion in you, excitement in you, and you will pursue it. So that's the kind of challenges we had, and mostly technical. It was wonderful. It was a great life.
That's very true, ma'am, what you said. So being the ever first woman director at ISRO, which is like an incredibly high leadership woman that a leadership position that a woman in the space field can achieve, I think that you will agree with me when I say that there were very few women leaders in the field of space at that time, and other fields compared as well. So what would be your message to women out there who are struggling with managing their ambition, their work, and their personal family commitments?
See, struggles are there for everybody. When you want to reach your goals, struggles are there. Whether it is a man or a woman, struggles are there. And of course, as we already saw, the struggles, especially with respect to certain aspects, biological aspects of women, are definitely there, and we have to pass through it. And as also telling, I strongly believe that self-help is the best help. And we have to understand that we can take help from anyone. And when it comes to children, their safety, their nourishment, is absolute essential. And who else is better at the time when parents are not available other than the grandparents? So it was my very conscious decision that I will live not by myself, and I will definitely live. It was a a win-win situation that there were grandparents who were also very happy to take care of children, and it gave a meaning to their life. And I was in a win situation, and the children were in a win situation, and I managed. But I'm not telling that is the only solution. Some of my colleagues have done fantastically well. Now coming up, there is one project, Aditya, a study towards sun. A satellite is being made. Project director is my younger colleague who is taken it up. She did not have such a help at home, and she hired help, and it's available. If you want, it will happen. And you have to think of the bigger picture in front of you. And in order to do that, the small things, you have to keep on taking help from others. You are also giving some kind of life to others by taking help from them. There's nothing wrong in taking help and moving on, because whatever I did in my life, I'm sure anybody can do. And whatever anybody does, I'm sure I can do. I have that confidence. There's one thing nobody can do: pursue my dreams. Right? So in order to do that, we have to make an arrangement, take help from, you can't be there at two places simultaneously, right? So at the same time, that kind of balancing is something each one has to bring out uniquely for their situation. And also you have to have pride in what you're doing. and make your family members take pride in what you are doing. I made it a point that wherever, whichever project I was working, there would be a family day at office. I would always take them, never miss it, take them out there and show them how is this office, what we are doing. They were also very proud of whatever I was doing. It's very important. Unless you take pride, nobody else will take. Unless you make it to yourself that it's something important for me, nobody will think it is important. I think struggling is there for everybody, but you have to make it happen. Okay, there are solutions if you want it. Where there's a will, there's a way, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so ma'am, you've been a part of quite a few space missions like the launch of the GSAT-12 and GSAT-10. So while working on these missions, what were those lessons that you learned? And even being in the space field, there are so many things, as you say, that every day you're working upon something. There are successes, failures. So what are those main key lessons that you've learned from these successes and failures while working at ISRO?
See, every time you complete a complex task, being a leader, first thing that happens is you get humbled out. You learn more and more that how important was the contribution of all your team members, right? So it's not you alone who do anything so complex. So the appreciation for the team members will increase, and you learn to respect others more and more. And at the same time, every project I have taken, it has helped me to learn some new aspect of engineering. Because when we come through engineering, we come through certain field. Like I studied electronics, and being a team leader to realize a satellite, you need to understand the basics of all other faculties also, right? So you keep yourself updated and understanding what is happening, and you have to be leading and showing the team where we are navigating, and towards that you have to make them move. And they are all experts in their own fields, right? So managing them, it's a big lesson. You keep learning that, and a lot of soft skills are required, and you have to have a strong hold in one subject, at least your own subject. At the same time, a capability to learn the peripheral subjects around you, so that the main mission, is achieved with the best efficiency that can be done. But definitely, one thing we learn as we go higher and higher is you become more and more humble, no doubt. Fantastic it will be. I mean, the way, you work out 101 things, there can be 102nd problem in the real life when you're realizing a complex system. Especially, I'm sure it's so everywhere, but when it becomes space related, there's no way of giving you a second chance to repair, right? So you have to be absolutely correct when you go there. And even a small percentage of error, space will not tolerate. And it's a lot of investment that goes in terms of money and time and effort, everything. So you really get humbled out at the time when you see that everything worked out nicely when it is coming. As far as failures, we are not novice to failures. Space is, as I told, is highly complex, and even if it is 100th mission, we'll be crossing our fingers that everything goes right, because so many unpredictable parameters in space will be there. For example, a very unfortunate thing was, I think sometime 3-4 years back, we launched on satellite. It was such a routine operation we have done, and just we all broke for a cup of tea and we all got a call back, and poof, the satellite had gone. I mean, it was so unimaginable what could go wrong, and a lot of analysis, and a small debris in the space which could have hit was the probable cause. These are the things, which really make you feel that there's something beyond your efforts. So, and we have to take it. Every failure is a challenge, and how to make it better next system. Every failure has taught us better than the successes.
That's very true, ma'am. What has been one of your biggest achievements in your career, and that personal proud moment of yours?
See, if I look back, really, my entire career, there have been a lot of such moments, the proud moments, everything when you make it happen and it works. For example, if you just ask me what was the proudest moment of my children, what can I say? The first steps my daughters took, or it is the first word they told, or the first day they went to school, everything was a proud moment, right? So exactly like that. I mean, every event was really a proud moment for me in the office. And the best thing that makes me feel proud when I look back in retrospective is I could make unhindered choices to grow in my career, and I could make my free choices, and that's what makes me proud. And I never denied any responsibility given to me, and I somehow managed everything. And you may say it was a luck, or I was lucky, or I was fortunate, but I believe that those who want to do it will become fortunate. Okay, because if I really wanted to do, there is nothing that comes in the way. I'm going to do it, whether it takes 12 hours of work. We have, in fact, I have stayed more than 24 hours in the office several times. Those are the kind of demands in our kind of work. There are things which you cannot leave, especially as you go higher and higher, your work will increase. It's not that the teams are there, they are going to do work. Along with them, you will be doing more and more and more work. So you're there with them all the time, and there will be crucial decisions, and you need to be with them. And we are always running against the time and things like that. So I think the broadest thing for me is that I could make free choices in my life all along. And any other technical challenge, we have competent people and we can solve it, right? So that's what makes me feel proud. And if I look back, my office is proud of my contribution. They have sufficiently rewarded, etc., and they recognize me. And at the same time, when I look back at home, did I do anything wrong? No, my daughters, my husband, in-laws, parents, everybody's so proud of me. And, that makes you feel that, yes, I have achieved something, right? So both at the professional front and at the house front. And doing that is not possible unless you have a passion and fire in you. So you cannot give up. If you want something, it will happen, right?
Yes, very, very right, very true. What would be your message or advice to young girls and women who are studying STEM or they're starting their career in those similar fields? Because you've been through it, so done that. So one piece of advice from you.
Could you kindly repeat? I lost you there.
I asked, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
What would be your message or advice to young girls and women who are studying STEM or starting their career in those fields? You've been there and done that through it. So an experience and advice that you would like to share with them.
STEM is so exciting. What can you say about it? STEM is something which tells you who you are, which enables you to understand the universe. So in fact, I think nature is an expert on STEM. Just look around you, how magnificent it is. That the planet system, the universe, and the way the phenomena they keep happening. And look, just not even so far away, just look around you, the plants, the trees, the life, even the origin of life, from where we came, and how perfectly each human body is made, how animals are made. It's so exciting, and how STEM cannot excite anybody. I mean, it's knowing about yourself, right? There cannot be more mysterious story than going through STEM and understanding the universe. Is it not? So really, the real life situations itself, if you see the importance of STEM, you will come to know. And also, anyway, apart from my excitement towards STEM, I would like to tell you that if you have any inclination for doing STEM, it's appropriate that you should know that it demands very systematic learning, right? And systematic training is required, studies are required, and you have to go step by step. So it's not something like, unfortunately, you cannot take a decision that I will major in something like Just now, Ms. D'Souza was telling she was really fortunate that she could take what she really liked, switch over to the subject. I don't know. I don't say anything is impossible in this world, but it becomes a little tough when you have to change it back to STEM. So you can test your waters in STEM, definitely, if you have an inclination. Go ahead and deep dive and get the pearls of that, the beauty of STEM. And if you think you really can't handle, you can change over. But later on, at one point of time, you get enthused about STEM. Going back might be difficult, though not impossible, right?
Right.
So that's my message for the girls, that go ahead with STEM. It is exciting. It's absolutely exciting. And it's thrilling. You can do it because so many people have done. And today it's not an issue. If I see around me, all young girls are enthused, at least in India. They're, wonderfully motivated to take STEM, and they want to do engineering, medical, pure science, everything. They are trying to do all these things. They have enough role models in the country. I'm sure,
You are one of them, man.
you
One
should
of the biggest role models.
try out your STEM, and then can think of any. We just did our job, really. That's all. Yeah.
So when you work in the space field, you see the world from a very large and a different perspective that not many other common people get to see, or experience. You see the limitless universe, the infinity possibilities. So does that change or affect the way of your thinking or the perspective of seeing things? How does it change you as a person as compared to the normal people who don't experience these things?
I want to slightly clarify it. To tell you frankly, such a perspective comes for any field, anybody who is pursuing any field, whether you're deep into art or you are deep into music, that kind of feeling comes. You understand the universe better. So in the physical terms, yes, you understand how vast is universe, and you understand that you do not understand how vast is universe. It is so vast, and how many mysteries are there in this universe, and how insignificant you are. It really has helped me whenever I have my life problems too, when I just close my eyes and think where I am in this universe. So how big are my problems? Nothing, right? So it is so majestic and wonderful, and we are nobody. That kind of humility will get into your system, into your DNA, into your genes. When you try to understand those really physically, how it is from the space, it is a fantastic feeling. And unfortunately, I have not gone to space and seen, but I am an ardent reader, how people have felt when they have traveled and they looked around. Everybody gets philosophical, right? So they understand the insignificance of human being. At the same time, my salutes to the human ingenuity, that in that insignificance, they can make a mark in this universe, right? So
didn't you want to go out there in the space and see everything, or like become like an astronaut or something?
yeah, in fact, there was an option when I was young that we were asked to enroll if you are interested, and I had also enrolled. But first thing, I got rejected because of my height and weight. Okay, it needs a lot of physical parameters. In those days, at least. Nowadays, I know there is space tourism, and if you have money, you can somehow manage to go and have a look at a glimpse of the horizon of the earth, not the universe, of course. You can have a glimpse of the horizon. And yeah, you need a lot of physical fitness, and it needs a different training. You cannot be a space scientist is not every space scientist is eligible to go into the space and then look into it. I would love to do it, maybe.
When was the first time ever that you were fascinated by something in space? Like as a child, like everyone has that fascination. Everyone, when they're smaller, like we want to become an astronaut, but they don't end up actually being that fascination, like goes away after a certain time. So when did that drive or that click come from within you to, be a part of this community and contribute to it?
I wouldn't say it started from childhood itself, though I can trace back in when I was 9 years old in 1969. There was landing on the moon, which ignited the minds of all children all over the world, really. That for us children, and I studied all along in my own native language. I studied in Kannada medium school, and I could not read English even at my 9th year, really. And that is the way we were very good at Kannada at that time. And my father, being a lecturer in a college, he had access for some of these science magazines he would bring, and he would read out about this Neil Armstrong, landing on the moon and things like that. He himself is a Sanskrit lecturer, later on became a professor, but he could not understand much of the science in it. And it was exciting for everybody. He made it more exciting for us. And the schools were also talking about it. I'm sure that is one vivid thing, very clearly put a kind of curiosity in our minds, that there's something beyond. And for that, to do that, we have to pursue with science, right? So probably it is a culmination of that seed, and later my own interest in science and mathematics as I grew up, So basically we were taught 5 steps while we were studying. So first is patana, that you get acquainted with what it is. Then adhyayana, read about it. Then chintana, you have to think about it. And mantana, we used to have debates on the topics, etc. Finally, manana. These 5 steps were fitting so well for mathematics and science, and I loved it. And probably my ideas got culminated better when I was in pre-university that I should take engineering. Then when I went to engineering, we had industrial visits. I visited ISRO, where I know ISRO was not a success organization at that time. It was a baby organization still. And they had their share of failures in some of the SLVs. And, but I was, the whole thing came back to me, that I have to join ISRO, and I made up my mind. I was waiting for my engineering to be completed. I got jobs in every public sector, and I got an opportunity to study higher in Indian Institute of Science too. But once a job call came from ISRO, I never looked back. I just wanted to straight away go there and join. I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity. So that was how that's the reason we also have taken up from ISRO the programs to scintillate that kind of energy in youngsters like Chandrayaan, Mangalyaan, and now we are going ahead with Aditya. So all these things, and our Gaganyaan program is coming up. We are going to take human beings into space. These things are absolutely essential to kindle that interest and energy amongst the youngsters in STEM.
Yes, ma'am. So lastly, I would like to end my conversation by asking you, who was the most inspiring person, the person who inspired you the most through your journey, your role model?
To tell you frankly, we never thought of role model, etc. I mean, it's not one person. For me, my role models have been my parents, really. And, who I'm amazed for their time, for the time zone they were when they were bringing poor girls at home, how they brought us up with, instilling in us that, the spirit of making our own choices, and the spirit of independence, and no restrictions, whatever. I'm really thankful, and they are my role models, that every middle class family, the way they were, or any family, if they bring up their daughters like that, nothing like that, I'm sure all daughters will grow up independent, and they can stand on their own legs. But yeah, I mean, it's always been amazing, the opportunities which kept going, and we could see people who are doing very well, the dreams of Vikram Sarabhai, when nobody else could think of something, she thought of it as a, that bringing the space application to mankind. To the India. We didn't want to do a rat race, but instead we did something totally novel. Those things are all role models for us when we were doing that. And it's very important. Role model need not have to be a woman for a girl. Role model is a characteristic in anybody. It should become a role modeling for you. And you're all young girls, so capable. I'm sure you don't need to do those things. You have an access for so much information today. And I'm sure you're all much more devoid of the burdens which were there long, long ago, when we are talking not for the erudite class of people who you are. And we have to focus more on those areas where we really have to motivate them, push them out, and educate the parents first, that why women have to participate and all that. What you people have to learn is, just now as Ms. D'Souza was telling, when you're in a boardroom, don't sit like a cute bonsai. You have to grow out, and you have to thrust out your inner energy. You have to show you're there, whether you're there because policy needs it or reservation needs it. No, doesn't care. You're there. Make use of that opportunity. Show your energy, show your capability. Don't care about others. Others, what they think is their baggage, not yours. You go baggage free, light-hearted. That is the best way to do that.
Really good piece of advice, ma'am. Thank you so much, Anuradha, ma'am, for being present here with us today and for engaging in such a wonderful conversation. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us and giving us some inspiring pieces of advice. I would also like to thank Ladli and Sharada, ma'am, for giving me this opportunity. Malti, ma'am, the Population First team, UNFPA, and everyone else on the team, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And thank you, Anuradha, ma'am, for being present here today.
Thank you for this wonderful conversation.
Thank you, ma'am. That was such a brilliant session, Anuradha ji. It is our privilege to have you with us this evening. Thank you so much. Thank you. Purvi, your questions were well received. So moving on, we've had a very good number of young minds who have attended this event today, and they have shared their questions with us. The event, we have about 10 minutes, and we would like you to address these audience. The first question will go for Usha Thorat. The question is, it was great listening to you, Usha ma'am. My question to you is, do you think demonetization opened up new opportunities for women to be included in the financial sector? Was that the potential captured?
Demonetization crippled the already excluded even more. So in a sense, I would say that people in the rural areas, people who used cash as their main means of payment, were overnight, lives were so disrupted. And in any such kind of a disruption of the economy, women get even more abandoned, they get more disturbed. So just like you see COVID-19, the slowing down of the economy and the disruption in the economic scene disrupts the less, the more excluded part of the country, the geographically less networked, the rural areas, the hinterland, where it's not so well connected. These are the places and people where the impact really eventually comes, the informal sector. So I would say that it really sort of disrupted very seriously the economy, and in such disruption as women get even more disrupted.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. We have Mr. Sister and Sunita Rao and Dolly, ma'am. If you have any question for our leaders, we would like you to please take it up. Dolly ma'am, please put across your question. Dolly ma'am. Okay, she's not there. Yeah. Yes, Dolly ma'am. You're on mute, ma'am.
You're on mute, Dolly.
I missed the question you asked, so could you please repeat that?
If you have any question that you would like to put across to Usha ma'am and Anuradha ji and Faye D'Souza, please take it forward.
I am so impressed with the kind of work that these women have been doing. I don't have a question. I feel so ignorant and left behind compared to all that they've achieved and done. And I'm very proud to be part of this program. I'm sorry, I don't know them personally, because I'm a great one for making personal contacts and uncovering all the secrets of their achievements. But I hope that Ladli will give me an opportunity to do that at some point. I'm sorry, I don't know them personally, because I'm a great one for making personal contacts and uncovering all the secrets of their achievements. I don't know what it means. Unmute myself.
There is some disturbance. I think somebody is using two devices at the same time. Please switch off one of the devices.
I don't know. There's something coming on my mobile, which I haven't turned on.
Yeah, you can comment on what has been about the discussion and other things also, Dolly. Not necessarily ask a question. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you all are saying. I've turned off what was coming parallel on my mobile. I don't know how that happened.
No, it's okay. What I mean, we would like you to, sort of give your response or your feedback on the program and on some comment on the whole event today.
Well, as I'd already said, I don't know whether that was recorded or not, but that I'm so impressed by all these women. Young Pooja, that little girl, isn't that her name? Purvi. I mean, my God, so eloquent, so clear, so in control of what she wanted to convey. I mean, the senior ones, of course, are already experienced and achieved. But I am looking at the young ones because they are the future of what is going to be. And I'm very impressed with them. I have great hope in the Ladlis of tomorrow and the Ladlis of today.
Thank you, Dolly.
Thank you so much, Dolly, ma'am.
The other thing I did say is that I'm sorry that I didn't know, and I don't know Anuradha ji and the other lady that spoke.
Usha Thorat.
But Sharda, you've got to rectify that, because I need to know these wonderful people who are doing such terrific
Sure, Dolly.
work.
Yes. We'll definitely take this conversation further. Yes.
Lovely. Okay. And thank you for this. It's been wonderful.
Okay. Moving on to the next question for Miss Faye D'Souza. How do you see news coverage in newspapers or TV channels from a gender perspective? Are enough stories being written, planned from the gender perspective? Will having more women in the field change it, or it needs something more like gender sensitization of the whole workforce? This message is for Faye, for Miss D'Souza. Is she there? She's not there.
Oh my God.
No. I think Faye has dropped.
Yeah, she has.
She has
Yeah.
dropped off the call. So, in fact, there's one more question for Usha Thorat. Who are the role models for you, Madam Thorat?
Can you see me?
Yes, I can.
So I was quite taken up by what Anuradha said about her parents, and like she said, we really didn't. It was not so much a role model as people whom you admired and who you learnt a lot from. So I think yes, my parents who sort of fostered this idea of service to the society, service to the community, and to respecting nature. I think that is what I got from them. I got a lot from my mentors in the Reserve Bank. We had some wonderful people like Dr. C. Rangarajan, who was governor of the Reserve Bank soon after when the liberalization period started. Then there was Mr. Tharapur, who took a lot of interest, personal interest in my career and, sort of really advised me all along the way. Then there was Dr. Reddy, I think, thanks to whom I became deputy governor. So I think I owe a lot to all these people. These are people who challenged me. They sort of didn't make it very easy. I mean, they challenged you. They really gave you and empowered you. So I think it was a wonderful, getting that from them. If we were to look outside in society and look at all the the great people, I guess somebody like Mother Teresa, or I don't know. I mean, I guess one could think of people like that as models. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. The last question goes out to Anuradha, ma'am. This question is, wonder how many women bosses entertain this kind of work style? Did you get my question, ma'am? Wonder how many women bosses entertain this kind of work style? Work later, work now.
Actually, it depends upon what kind of work you're doing. The more and more you're engrossed in your work, I mean, the demands will be similar, whether it is from a man boss or a woman boss, the demands will be there, but they're not demands, they are demands by yourself. If you understand, if you own the system, nobody need to demand from you, right? So it's the job of the boss, man or a woman, to make the team members understand their role and their importance and how they fit into the big picture, and automatically things will happen. Of course, everybody have got their own panache of working, of their own panache of leadership. And I think I love to love people. I loved my team wherever I went, and it was always a very cohesive team. And in fact, some of the members who are not acceptable to other teams were put into mine because they could not get work from them. But it never happened with me. It was like a family for me, every team, and it was a fantastic experience. And I'm sure everybody have got their own style of doing. There is nothing like a particular rule that a leader has to be like this. And I believed that I must have a very cohesive team, and with little empathy, understand where is the blockage for your team member. It helps them, it helps you, it helps the overall task. And it has been my formula even back at home. They're a great team for me to push me through my career, because teaming up is absolutely essential. And I believed it. That was my leadership style, that understand each other and help each other. Whoever has got little less, try to do with the other. It doesn't matter who did it. Finally, the work has to be done that way.
Thank you so much. We have Sunita Rao who has a question. Sunita, you can please switch on your video and audio and please come on screen.
And Malati, after Sunita, I'd like to make an observation.
Yes, definitely, Mr. Bobby.
Hi, I'd like to wish everybody first a really, really wonderful International Women's Day. I think this is definitely one of the most inspirational, largely events I have ever attended. It just so happens it's on Zoom because of the situation we're all in. I don't really actually have a question, But like Dolly said, I just want to comment on this, if I may, on this afternoon. We have had three people from three completely different spheres. There's been media with Faye D'Souza, there's been space, and there's been the RBI, and completely diverse situations, and each one having jewels to say about the casual sexism in the boardroom, about how Anuradha ji said that we have to go baggage free, and baggage free was my favorite one. And then Usha Thorat ji saying how sons need to be given the message. Because I asked her a direct question. I said, why is it that the women have to worry about what's going on at home? I mean, if both are working, why doesn't the man worry about what's going on at home? And she said the messages have to be given by the mothers to the sons. So all of this has been extremely inspirational, and I have great admiration for working women, because I managed to have a 30-35 year career, but I wasn't married then. I married very, very late, and I have a very, very small child now. And I have no idea how I would have been able to do all that jet setting and travel all over the countryside and all over the world if I had this little one at home. I don't know how I would have done it. But there are people here right in front of me, even listening, who are doing that kind of thing. And I think that's only because, as Anuradha ji put it, she said, nobody can pursue your dream. And what I said in my song, Sunzara, that when you know things are going real rough, you've got to be tough enough. And I think we have a lot of tough women here, tough, but not aggressive, humble, but not timid. I think these are just fabulous lessons learned today. Thank you. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you so much, Sunita ji. We have Mr. Bobby's sister who would like to say a few words. Mr. Bobby, can you please switch on your video and audio, please? Please switch it on. Thank you, sir.
Where is my video now? How do I do it? trying to get my video.
You're on video, Mrs. Sister. Just have to adjust the camera a bit.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Even if you can't see me, it
Yes.
doesn't matter. No, while endorsing everything that's been said about our great participants and women leaders today, I just want to go back to the beginning of this discussion, which was on gender equity and gender equality. And my main observation is this, that I think unless and until we, taking up from what Sunita also said, we sensitize men, boys from their very young age, to the fact that they are as responsible for their women, for their brothers, for their children, for their parents, for their friends and everyone, to become something in life. So that they have to be sensitized to the fact that they have a role to play. And this is the message I think that needs to spread much more, because today a lot of women's rights, all these statements are being made and they're being absorbed. But I think now the men need to be, got sucked in more into this whole discussion and conversation. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sister. Thank you so much. And we move on. I would now like to call upon my colleague Mrinmay, our communication manager for Population First, for the vote of thanks and wrap up. Mrinmay, over to you.
Hello. What wonderful conversations we had today. Listening to three amazing women and being interviewed by three equally amazing people. It was absolute pleasure to listen to all of you. Saying thank you may sound very formal, but I know for sure everyone is glad to be part of this great dialogue. Thank you, the three special guests who are now a part of the Ladli family, if I may say so, for sparing 2 hours for this event. Mrs. Usha Thorat, Ms. Faye D'Souza, and Dr. Anuradha TK, you have been exemplary in your chosen fields, and you spoke so well that someday we would love to have your longer conversations with you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Adoorya and Purvi. You showed your maturity in the questions, and I envy your confidence at this age. All the very best to you. May you become big leaders. And big thank you to Kuljan, who is part of the family actually for us at Population First. Thank you, Ms. Argentina Matavel-Pikin, for your inspirational words and asking so many questions to the speakers. Thank you, Anuja. Thank you, Dolly. Thank you, Sunita. Thank you, Dr. Sharda. Also, thank you, Malti, Pooja, Swati, my colleagues at Population First. And a big thank you to people watching on YouTube. Thank you once again. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Anuradha. Thank you, Sunita.